Hayao Miyazaki doesn't know I exist, and that's okay. It's no secret that I love Ghibli movies, or that my favorite ones happen to be those that Miyazaki himself worked on. This is true of a lot of people familiar with the films. My introduction to his work was Kiki's Delivery Service. It's not a popular one, but it came at a tumultuous time in my life. Something about it spoke to my heart, letting me know that it's okay to feel tired and stressed, to not fit in, to be excited and afraid of big changes. It was a film that reminded me to simply enjoy the small moments and take in the scenery, and to press on with life slowly. A lesson I think a lot of us need in the modern hustle culture we're in. One of my favorite works is Howl's Moving Castle, a very different story in the film than in the book it was adapted from, and one that would go on to influence how I write, namely, how I write character. It's a film consisting of three main plots, not subplots, main plots. There is the crisis and tragedy of war, Sophie's curse, and Sophie's relationship with Howl. If you asked me to delegate one as the main plot and relegate the other two into subplots, I wouldn't be able to. All three are tangled in each other and are essential for Sophie and Howl's character arcs. It's genius storytelling, and one very few manage to pull off, because we're taught that there can only be one primary plot, that there must be a villain or antagonist that either succeeds or meets their downfall, depending on the genre, and that there must be a goal that the protagonist is set on. Miyazaki rejects all of this. See, these are typical structures of Western storytelling. A lot of stories and folklore from the Far East, India, and Native Americans do not follow this format. Many are lacking a villain, looking instead at virtues or the journey of a central character. Momotaro is about getting the animal companions to get along, symbolically uniting Japan, more than it is about the destination. The tale of Genji revolves around the titular character's emotions and self-reflection, more than his climb and station, which kind of just happens. Kaguya doesn't have any particular goal, and even antagonists. Rather, the story is about grief over how fleeting and temporary everything is, and that it needs to be appreciated while it's around. In many stories across Africa, the central villain is defeated before the halfway point, often acting as the launch point for the real story. Often the story is about finding a deep meaning or hope in one's life. In an era of stories where central female characters are either fighters or hunters or adept in some other way to physically outmatch allies and adversaries, Miyazaki films became a comfort. His characters allowed themselves to be freely vulnerable, to be weak and emotional. Very rarely did he write a character who was a warrior or held political power or led an army. His central characters are usually powerless or peacemakers, and to my little introvert brain, that was a more encouraging message. It's okay for me to not be a fighter, to not be a leader, to be vulnerable. I could be gentle and still accomplish meaningful things. I carried this message with me when writing A Dance of Mist and Fury, taking Miyazaki's approach in planning as I wrote to keep a natural feeling and flow. I wanted the main female character to remain gentle, for the main male character to be conflicted, and for the primary antagonist to be as much a victim of circumstance as the protagonists were. Concepts I pulled from Howl's Moving Castle and Princess Mononoke when thinking about each character arc. Likewise, there's a lot of influence from Princess Mononoke in my upcoming work, Voice of Wind. Themes of preservation and Nausicaa and Castle in the Sky form the foundation of prominent characters when writing the lyrical series, as well as the lax attitude and loathing of war and politics from Porco Rosso when writing Cal's perspective. Whether or not I've done a decent job of weaving in these concepts and adoration in my own work remains to be seen, and art is subjective. It's like Schrodinger's themes. The answer is both yes and no. So while I'll likely never get the chance to meet or thank Miyazaki in person, his work left a mark, one that will stay in my heart and remind my imagination to practice writing the quiet moments, the things that are unspoken but felt and understood. Hayao Miyazaki doesn't know I exist, and that's okay.